Welcome back to Nightfalls, the bedtime show of classic and original stories designed to guide you into a calm and peaceful sleep. I'm Geoffrey Newland, and tonight we will be taking a vacation to the snowy peaks of Bulgaria with a family of eager skiers. Take a deep breath. Imagine the fresh mountain breeze against your face, and let's begin. She lifted the mug to her mouth and paused. Tara closed her eyes, took a deep breath in through her nose, and enjoyed the scent of fresh peppermint flowing up and opening her airways, filling her body with refreshing energy. She held her breath for a few seconds, savoring the feeling before gently sighing out. She felt her whole body release. Her morning routine was essential to setting herself up for the rest of her day. If she didn't take the time to relax and center herself, enjoying a bit of time just for her, then the rest of the day would be a whirlwind. That was the last thing that Tara wanted on vacation. Tara and Jasper had been skiers for years. Jasper had been introduced to the winter sport from a young age. He'd always spent his winters skiing with his family, and when he met Tara, he was eager to convince her to take up the sport with him. While Tara was apprehensive at first, having never skied before in her life, at 25 years old, she had finally donned a pair of skis and joined Jasper and his family on one of their famous family vacations. Tara was shaky at first, struggling to find her balance and overcome her nerves. But as soon as she grasped the hang of a snowplow so that she could successfully slow herself down, she was on a roll. She adored the way she felt when skiing. It was thrilling, and she felt free and adventurous. She felt like if she could learn to ski, then she could learn to do almost anything. Tara and Jasper had taken a yearly ski vacation together ever since. They had travelled around the world, pursuing their love of the snow-capped peaks and the enticing sport. And now, with 2 young children by their side, they were still vacationing in the mountains. They had raced down some of the most renowned mountains and stayed in some of the very best ski resorts. They had travelled to Japan, Switzerland, Canada, France, and Austria, and they were always looking for new slopes to hit around the globe. This winter, they were vacationing in Bulgaria. Each day, they would head up to the peaks of the Pirin Mountains. Tara was perfectly content gliding down the smaller blue runs with the kids and attempting the red slopes whilst they were having lessons. Jasper was more extreme, attacking the steep black runs and meeting them all at the restaurant for lunch. Each morning, Tara awoke at 5:30 a.m. before anybody else in the house. The rest of the family would wake up just after 6 o'clock, so she used this solitary time to enjoy some peace and quiet. She would take a warm, steamy shower and dress herself in a pair of comfortable leggings and a thermal jumper, ready to add her ski suit on top later when they left the chalet. She would apply SPF moisturizer to her face and massage it delicately into her skin. Then she would make herself a cup of peppermint tea and sit down on the sofa, waiting for everybody else to rise for the day. She would use this time to reflect, read, and sometimes just to sit in silence and simply enjoy her warm cup of tea. The clock struck 6:15, and she heard the shuffling of feet upstairs. Everyone was waking up, preparing to hit the slopes. While they all showered and got dressed, Tara made breakfast for them all. She whipped up 4 bowls of porridge with honey drizzled over them and slices of banana scattered on the top. She also toasted slices of bread and placed them on a plate in the center of the table, accompanied by a block of butter and a jar of raspberry jam. Last but not least, she prepared some snacks for everyone for the day. She laid out 4 energy bars on the kitchen worktop and 4 green apples. Soon, the rest of the family descended on the breakfast table. Jasper made himself a cup of coffee to go along with his breakfast, while their 8-year-old son, Henry, devoured his bowl of porridge, and their 5-year-old daughter, Olivia, gobbled up 2 slices of toast coated in jam. Once breakfast was finished, they all dressed themselves in their ski coats, trousers, and a pair of shoes, and headed out into the crisp February air outside their chalet. Tara made sure that nobody forgot their gloves or their snacks for the day. She knew how grumpy her children got if they didn't have a mid-morning snack. As they walked their way through the streets of Bansko, they passed people already prepared for a day of skiing up the mountains. There was a general camaraderie between everyone, and everybody nodded and bade a good morning to each other on the way. 5-year-old Olivia skipped along the street, filled with renewed energy from a good night's sleep, and gushed about how excited she was for her lesson with her ski instructor that morning. This was the first time that Olivia had joined the family ski holiday, as she had always been too young before now. She had excitedly picked out a bright pink ski suit to wear and a helmet with swirling patterns and unicorns on the top. She looked as cute as a button, and she had taken to skiing excellently. Tara and Jasper had watched on anxiously as she took her first ski lesson, observing her wobbles and falls. But with every tumble into the soft, powdery snow, Olivia had giggled and pulled herself up to her feet before skiing on without a care in the world. She loved going as fast as she could down the nursery slope, and her instructor had to pull her to a stop several times. She was such a little daredevil, and Tara and Jasper loved watching her enjoy herself. They'd always wanted to share their hobbies with their children, and it felt especially special to be here in Bulgaria, all together for the first time. Once they had gathered their ski equipment and helmets from the store, they trudged their way across to the gondola, wearing their heavy ski boots. Every step was like a workout when you walked in snow boots, but as soon as they were clipped onto the base of a ski, you hardly even noticed they were there. After waiting in line for approximately half an hour, the gondola queue began to move, and the holidaymakers started to pile their way into the carriages. As a gondola pulled up right in front of the family, Jasper and Tara took the children's skis out of their hands and placed them in the baskets on the sides, while the kids jumped into the carriage. Jasper and Tara dived in by their sides just as the doors automatically closed to the gondola, and they all flew up into the air with a whizzing motion and floated above the snowy white ground, propelled by steel cables above their head. Henry and Olivia stuck their hands on the windows and pressed their faces against the glass to get a better view. The sight from the gondola was one of the best parts of each day. As they rode up the mountainside, ascending higher and higher up the mountain, they were gifted with the most breathtaking views. All around them, snow-covered trees climbed up the sides of the mountain, and behind them, as they looked back down to where they had boarded the gondola, was the most spectacular view of Bansko and beyond. They could see for miles ahead, and the houses and buildings were all surrounded by mountains. It felt like they were in an isolated world here, far from bustling cities and tall skyscrapers. Instead, the tallest monuments around were the fabulous Pirin Mountains. They began to ascend through misty clouds, and the children giggled and chattered with intrigue. "Are we up even higher than the clouds, Mummy?" Olivia inquired curiously. Tara replied fondly, "Yes, we are higher than some clouds. We're going over 1,500 meters into the air." "Wow!" Olivia and Henry exclaimed with breathy voices. Tara always thought that the best thing about having children was seeing the world through their eyes. Everything was so enthralling to them, and it helped remind her how wonderful and miraculous life was. After half an hour of riding the gondola, the family eventually reached base camp on the mountain. There were people everywhere. Everyone was getting ready for their first ski of the day. People were queuing for the ski lift to take them higher up the mountain to the top of the peaks. Others were waiting in front of the main building, waiting for their ski instructors to collect them. And others were seated on tables and chairs outside, enjoying cups of coffee and hot chocolate. "There's my teacher Carlos," Olivia cried, waving across the way at a man in a red ski suit. Olivia admired her instructor. He was very patient and friendly, and had made the whole experience of learning to ski a pleasant one for her. Jasper and Tara were very grateful to him. Olivia gave both of her parents a hug, and then Jasper led her across the snow to her instructor, Carlos, who would take her for her lesson from here. Tara turned to her son Henry, who was standing still, staring up at the mountain, absolutely mesmerized. She followed his gaze and noted that he was watching the experienced skiers glide down a towering black run, the steepest of all the slopes here at Bansko. Henry smiled with admiration and asked his mother, Do you think I'll ever be good enough to ski down that? Tara placed her hand on his shoulder and rested her skis against her body. Of course, she encouraged him, although you might need quite a few more lessons before you attempt it. At that moment, Jasper returned to their side and followed their gaze up the mountain. I'm going to ski that slope this morning, he declared triumphantly. Henry was clearly impressed and asked, Can I do it with you? Both parents started laughing, and Jasper patted him on his head before saying, When you're older, you can join me on the black slopes, but for now, let's stick to what you can manage. While Jasper headed over to the ski lift to scale the mountain to the top of the Black Run, Tara took Henry under her wing and they skated over to the start of the Blue Slope. This was a much easier incline for Henry to handle, and Tara enjoyed the steady winding of the run. Their intention was to meet Jasper at the bottom of their slopes and reunite with Olivia in time for lunch. Henry was desperate to watch his father soar down the Black Run, and as he and Tara set off steadily along the Blue Run, he called out to her, "Let's race, Dad, and beat him to the bottom. Maybe we'll get to see him finish the Black Run too." Tara smiled and agreed, and they used their poles to pick up their pace and began dashing down the slopes. The slope was wide and coated in crunchy, crystal clear snow. It was so wide that they were perfectly spread out from other skiers, and they had plenty of room to swoop and turn from side to side, creating patterns in the snow behind them. Tara's goggles protected her eyes from the wind, but she felt the chilly air against her cheeks as she drifted down the slope. The February mountain air was icy, but her body felt toasty and warm underneath her many layers of clothing. As she coasted along, gracefully glissading in and out of other skiers, she kept a watchful eye on Henry and allowed him to sweep out ahead of her so that she always had a close eye on him. Henry was an accomplished skier for his young age. He had taken to the snow like a duck to water, no doubt following in the footsteps of his father. Even when they weren't skiing as a family, Henry was a keen roller skater, and every Christmas he begged to go ice skating. He had perfect balance, excellent coordination, and a daring spirit, which meant that he wasn't afraid of trying anything. So the day he had first worn a pair of skis, he had been a natural. Now, as Tara watched him zoom ahead down the mountainous slope, she grinned with pride that their family could enjoy these incredible experiences together. Knowing that Henry was perfectly capable of making his way down the slope with ease, Tara took her time to absorb and appreciate the moment. Tara associated the feeling of skiing to that of flying. It was an unnatural experience for the human body to accomplish. To be able to move at great speed with such grace and ease. Once you had the hang of it, you hardly had to put in any effort to ski, and Tara found it meditative. She felt otherworldly and ethereal, like she was at one with the earth. She admired the forest that surrounded her and the majestic trees that lined the route. Ahead of her was a road made purely of snow, and it peaked and dove with hills and bumps that made the route both thrilling and challenging. If she looked out far ahead, she could see a misty sky that stretched out across views of the mountains. They were far from the towns here, and all that surrounded them was nature at its simplest and its finest. She noted that she couldn't hear anything other than the rushing of the wind in her ears. The sound was like a natural white noise that calmed her mind and blew away any thoughts from her head. Her mind never felt quieter than when she was skiing. She inhaled the fresh, clean air and felt enlivened and invigorated. Her adrenaline was running high, yet her body and mind were in a state of tranquility. She felt euphoric. Eventually, the slope started to come to its end, and she could see the base camp come into view in the distance. This last leg of the slope was particularly steep, and Tara decided to make the most of it. She dug her poles into the ground at her side and pushed herself forward. Suddenly, she started whisking down the hillside at a spirited speed. She whisked her way from side to side, drawing an S shape in the snow as she flew down. Her hair blew back behind her in the wind, and the air was harsh against her face. She let out a whoop of delight and laughed as she sashayed her last few turns across the slope and skidded to a halt right in front of Henry, who was waiting at the bottom. He looked at her with an impressed expression on his face. "Wow, Mum," he commented. "You looked awesome just then." Tara laughed and replied, "I felt awesome just then too." Together, Tara and Henry walked to the bottom of the black slope and managed to catch a last glimpse of Jasper, expertly navigating his way down the steep, narrow slope. Henry watched his father with wide eyes as if he was a superhero. Tara supposed to children, their parents were their superheroes. The family met Olivia from her ski lesson and chatted with Carlos about her progress before heading to the restaurant for lunch. Olivia's instructor had taken her out onto a slightly more challenging slope that morning to push her skills a step further, and she had done excellently. It seemed that being a natural skier ran in the family. The family spent the rest of the afternoon skiing together. Jasper taught Henry some fun new tricks and maneuvers, while Tara held Olivia's hand and they practiced their snowplow and turns at a steady pace. Tara was impressed by how well Olivia had picked it all up and felt confident that Olivia could probably make it down the blue slope with some assistance. But that would wait until tomorrow. Today, she wanted to make sure that Olivia felt comfortable and confident with what she could do. And by the time the family headed down to the bottom of the mountain to round off their day, she felt reassured that Olivia was settled in her skis. Tomorrow would be a big day for her youngest child as they attempted to go down a slope together. After dropping off their equipment back at the store, they all piled back into their chalet and stripped themselves of their sweaty ski suits. They all collapsed on the living room sofas and felt their bodies begin to unwind after a busy day of exhaustive sports. Jasper made a fire in the stone fireplace while Tara brewed some cups of hot chocolate. They all sat around in front of the crackling fire and sipped their soothing, delicious cups of the sweet drink, talking about the adventures and achievements they had experienced that day. Every member of the family was equally as content as the others. Jasper and Tara knew that their family ski holidays would be a regular occurrence for many years to come, and the thought of that filled them with great pleasure. After dinner, the children were ready for bed by 6:30 p.m, and no sooner had Jasper and Tara tucked Henry and Olivia into their beds than they were fast asleep. It had taken them no time at all. They were absolutely exhausted. Jasper and Tara felt like they could happily drift off to sleep too. But there was only one thing that they wanted to do before they retreated to bed for the evening. Grabbing their towels and their bathing suits, Jasper and Tara walked out onto the patio of their chalet and pressed the button to turn on the hot tub. Instantly, bubbles began to gush and pop up against the surface of the water, and steam started to steam up in the cold night air. Jasper and Tara climbed into the warm water and relaxed their heads back against the sides of the tub. Their bodies automatically started to float in mid-water, with the bubbles pushing their legs away and floating their toes all the way to the top so that they poked up out of the water. They could feel the cool air on the ends of their toes, but the rest of their body was submerged in the water, and they felt like their aches and pains were being massaged away with the ripples of the hot tub. Far off in the distance, through the darkness that was setting in for nighttime, lit up by the light of the moon, they could vaguely see the Pirin Mountains in the distance. The pair were battling to keep their eyes open as they lay in the hot tub, allowing the warm, bubbling water to work its magic and nurse their bodies back to health and relax them even more. As Jasper and Tara grabbed their towels and headed back inside, the last thing that their eyes saw were the distant peaks of the Pirin Mountains and the perfect snow that would entice them back tomorrow.